Hey, good evening, Internet. Welcome back to Counter at Your Own Risk, episode 36, where Kent and Chris are going to be discussing the Mummy franchise, the one starring Brendan Frasier, as well as the spin-off, The Scorpion King. This is kind of like the Halloween episode, and Kent gave it to me because it's my birthday today, so he let me choose something horror adjacent instead of going with something, totally scary, which I appreciate because every once in a while it's nice to talk about something that makes me smile instead of something that makes me want to cry. So I have very fond memories of this series, and some of those memories were sustained and some of those were tarnished as I rewatched them to talk about it. What about you, Kent? Like, thinking back to when they came out.
So I definitely remember going to the theater and seeing The Mummy Returns, and Scorpion King, the latter two because of The Rock and me being a big wrestling fan, but also because I thoroughly enjoyed the Mummy that came out in 99. Like,
I was trying to remember who I went and saw this with, and I don't remember if I might have gone with like you and Eric and Jim as a group, but I don't remember.
I have no idea. Like, this is not one of those films I can sit here and definitely tell you who I went with, so that's a possibility, no doubt. I just remember thinking, like, this was a very entertaining movie. I don't always... I hate to say, like, it's not a good movie versus a bad movie. This movie was entertaining as all hell to me at that time, though.
It was something in a genre that we really don't get very often, and that's like the Indiana Jones type, like, action and adventure movie.
That's what I spent, like, the first two and a half movies trying to think, like, what is this movie trying to do? And then finally I was like, oh yeah, Indiana Jones. Like, it didn't click with me for that long. Then I was like, oh, okay, now, yeah, all the pieces are there because they don't go full-on horror. They don't go full-on action because they throw in some whimsy. They throw in some comedy. I mean, not even like subtle winks.
Yeah, if they had like the map going along with like the line going on it, then I think it would have been like everybody would have connected the dots. But yeah, I mean, that's basically what it reminded me of. Like, I guess for lack of a better, an action adventure kind of movie, and we don't get a ton of them, and we get even less that are good.
Right. This was really a good attempt to try to make Brendan Frasier like A-list, and you could say he probably was A-list for a stretch of time because of this.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't never going to be Brad Pitt level, but between this and like George of the Jungle and I don't remember a couple other movies that came out right around the same time. Yeah, he was pretty fucking popular at the height of the game, and shit. Like, I don't know if we can. The Rock obviously had a career before, jumping into acting, but these two movies kickstarted his acting career.
Yeah, I mean, these were really acting school for him.
I don't really see him getting the rundown or walking tall without having done these two beforehand.
Right, yeah. In every movie, probably in The Rock's first 6 to 8 films, you can really see him, like, the progression on his movies. Until probably, like, I don't know. Just because I like to shit all over it, I hate Fast Five, so I'm going to just throw out Fast Five. It came before that, but, like, his progression was really good with those movies. Oh gosh, Get Short?
Well, it wasn't Get Shorty, it was the sequel that he was in, where he played the gay thug.
Yeah, he was so good in that.
What the hell was that called? I'll think of it in a second.
Yeah, that's fine. But, one of the things so I'm like looking through the cast, I'm like, geez, I don't really, Eric Avari was a name that, isn't like a household name, but it's a name that I kind of am familiar with. Rachel Weisz is a name that I've heard, but then I'm like, what the hell do I even know her from? And to this point, I don't really think I know a whole hell of a lot of her stuff. Did you watch a bunch of her stuff?
For her, The Mummy was the breakout thing, and she started doing stuff afterwards. She's done a lot more, like, drama stuff, kind of up for Academy Award kind of thing. Like, the biggest thing that I remember her doing genre-wise since then was the Fountain, the one with I think it was Darren Aronofsky. He did it with her and Hugh Jackman. Oh, and the Get Shorty sequel was called Be Cool. And if you're talking, Kent, I can't hear you.
Of course I was. Yes. Be Cool, I enjoyed the holy hell out of. So, yeah, it was really good. I'm seeing that she did The Fountain. We said The Fountain. The Lovely Bones, which I probably need to watch again. But, I don't know. Bourne Legacy I never saw. I've never seen any of the Bourne movies. Black Widow I still haven't watched. So she's not somebody that's been on my radar. She was very pretty to look at. I know this is something we'll get to in the second one, but what a difference between two films.
Yeah, it's almost like aliens.
Uh-huh. But with that being said, like, this was a good, fun cast. Like, I don't even know who the hell John Hannah is, but he was really fun.
Yeah, he's, the only thing I ever remember seeing him in besides this was, like, the Gwyneth Paltrow one, where she had, it was like, what would have happened to her if her life, if she did one choice different, and it showed the two, okay. I forgot what the hell it was called.
That I do not know.
Give me 1 second, I'll get there, but, yeah, and it's funny because, like, a lot of the people in it are either genre actors, like you said, like Eric Avari.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Kevin J. O'Connor.
You know it's serious when you gotta include the middle initial. There was a part of me that was like, is there a chance that he made it out? I don't know. He just seemed like the kind of guy that could survive anything, but, clearly he did not.
Yeah, I don't think he did. Shit, what was it? Almost there.
What else was he in? He was in Van Helsing, which I've never seen. See, that's the thing. Like, I haven't seen, like, hardly any
You're
of the
naming
movies.
all these movies that, like, I've seen. Like, how have you not seen Van Helsing?
Yeah, Van Helsing really does seem like a movie. Oh, he was Dr. Mindbender in G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra.
Yeah, like how you name, like, the worst fucking movie.
Well, come on now, you can't be shocked that I've seen that. And he was in Flight of the Living Dead, and I have a feeling that I saw that. So, yeah, really naming some of his all-star performances.
You know what John Hannah was in that I forgot about? He was. Did you see the Spartacus TV show?
Oh,
he was Gladiatus, the guy who.
right?
Yeah, he was the one who owned them.
Oh, okay.
That ends up getting killed at the end of season 1.
Now, here's a fun fact for you. So, on Flight of the Living Dead, not only did it have Kevin J. O'Connor, it also had Eric Avari.
Yeah, see, they all work together. And then, but I remember, like, I had never seen Arnold Vosloo or Oded Fehr before. And then they appeared in, like, not a ton of stuff, but, like, Arnold Vosloo and Oded Fehr were both on, like, NCIS. Oded Fehr was the guy who got Deuce Bigalow into being a gigolo in Deuce Bigalow, so.
And he was also in Resident Evil Extinction, a terrible movie that I definitely saw.
Yes, yeah. I'm pretty sure, like, some of the Americans were also, like, genre actors. Like I'm pretty sure I've seen like Corey Johnson before in other stuff. Jonathan Hyde, the guy who was the head of that expedition, you know, he's been in all sorts of shit from like Anaconda to, you know, I don't know, all sorts of horror B-list stuff. So
yeah, I really became I really liked Oded quite a bit. Out of all the performances, I think him and Benny and Jonathan, they really all did a good job to win me over as good side characters, which is always just as important as a good lead. Like, you want your lead to be able to carry everything while your side actors reel you in.
Yeah, and I'll say this, you know, like even the smaller parts, you know, like the opposing, you know, expedition to try to racing them, they fleshed them out enough without going too much into detail that, you know, they had their enough personality that, you know, when you start seeing them getting murdered, you know, I wouldn't say that you cared, but, you know, it mattered. You know, they stuck out. I mean, one of the things, too, that I love about this movie is just that the humor hits for me.
It was really, like, at times it felt like a damn Looney Tunes thing, almost. Like, it was almost so in your face, but I'm completely good with that sort of type of humor if your own, you know, stay with that humor, which it did, and I was completely fine with it.
Like, there's a scene towards the end where Ardith, Rick, and Jonathan are shooting at mummies and running from them when they're trying to save Evie. And, like, the foreground focus is on Brendan Frasier. And, what's his face? John Hannah's in the background. But he shoots all of the bullets in his revolver, and then he looks at it, and then he throws the revolver at the mummies that are coming at him. I mean,
yes.
It's just like, it's such a background thing, but it's so fucking fun. I mean, it's so in his character. I fucking love it. I mean, that's the kind of shit that hit for me. Yeah, and, you know, even watching it on the old low-res DVD version, some of the, like, I have to say, there were some things in these movies that were, like, cutting-edge fucking technology-wise.
Oh, the special effects at the time, this was really good. Like, the crawling under the skin of the scarabs was interesting. Just the overall composition of Imhotep was interesting.
Yeah, they did a good job, too, of making a dude who was, like, evil, but sympathetic as well. I mean, he wasn't, you know, I don't think anybody wanted him to win, but I don't think anybody was like, oh, you know, this guy was, you know, just a complete asshole. You know, he wasn't like an unrepentant, you know, like child murderer or anything, you know, along that.
Right. Yeah. So a couple things that, you know, they also hit on some cliches like, hey, should we kill him? No, the desert will. How often have we just seen like that kind of scenario play out where it's like, should we kill the guy that we're supposed to kill? No, we'll let the environment do it. And the environment never does. So maybe somebody make a movie where the environment does kill the person. Zig when everybody's zagging.
Yeah.
Thought?
Yeah, there you go.
And I know they did it for comedic humor, comedic reasons, stuff. And I guess I wanted to complain more about this in the second one. But, you know, when she knocks over all the bookshelves in the library, and I'm thinking, like, why would anybody ever arrange it where if one falls, everything's going to fall?
I don't know. And, yeah, that's the kind of shit that, like, I give it a pass for. Because, hey, that's...
Kids found it humorous.
That's towards the beginning, too, and it's...
It's lighthearted, yeah. I get it. But, and I guess I'm just going to blow my load here, is that they did the exact same damn thing in part 2.
Well, it was a little different.
Did we need another domino effect ploy? I don't know.
Well, we might not have, but Rick and Evie did, so...
Well, yeah, okay, fair enough. They needed it more than we did. Okay, I'll buy into that.
But no, I get you. Yeah, like, what were they rated?
They had to have been PG-13, I'm thinking. Yeah. Because nothing about them was graphically... I mean, even like when they were slicing up guys, they weren't showing it from a bloody perspective, really.
Yeah. So yeah, both are PG-13. So I mean, I don't know. I don't. I mean, it was a simpler time back then too. So.
Oh gosh, this was a time in my life where I didn't take movies seriously. So like, this type of thing was incredible. Like, I was just a happy-go-lucky schmuck that, although I watched a ton of movies, I never analyzed or really cared. I just watched them to be entertained. And this, as I said in the very beginning, like, this was entertaining as hell. I couldn't have asked more for a movie. This was one of the movies I'm pretty sure I bought, like, when it first came out on VHS. I think VHS was still... DVD just kind of started, right? Around this time?
The first DVDs I remember getting were in 98 for my birthday. So,
yeah, I mean, it could have been VHS.
Probably both, yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
Alright, so, I mean, let me ask you this. Like, I know you've watched them, but, like, how well-versed were you on the old Universal horror movies? The black and whites, you know, the Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff's.
I probably saw them about 4 or 5 years ago, so memory doesn't serve me well. So,
but I mean, so you weren't at the time, you know?
Oh, like, at the time, no, I'd never seen any of them.
And if I had said, "Hey, we're going to make a movie about either A, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, or the Mummy," which one would you have been the most excited about?
At that time, I would have been more excited about Dracula or Wolfman.
So the fact that we got something about the Mummy, who I would have said would have probably been last on my list, and it was good, was like a shock out of the fucking blue. You know?
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, like at the time, I didn't even correlate this with being like in the same vein as the Universal world, I guess. I don't know. I just didn't consider that aspect. So to me, I was just like, oh, it's a movie about a mummy. Cool. Like, I don't know. I probably thought more about like some like Scooby-Doo or some shit than I did about the Universal monster movies.
Yeah, I get you. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I was prepared to not like this, and then seeing it and, you know, having it. Because, I mean, again, like, you watch the trailers now, and it doesn't tell you where it's leaning. You know, you see a little bit of horror, right, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of action. And I don't know if they necessarily gave you, like, the greatest idea that, hey, this is going to be just basically a collage of all three genres at the same time. But, I mean, like, The Mummy, for me, is one of probably the most surprising movies I saw on how much I enjoyed it from where I was expecting to be going in to see the movie.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't really know. Like, for me, I'm trying to go back in time, and I can see myself saying I liked Brendan Frasier at the time, mainly because I liked Airheads, and was he also an Encino Man?
Yeah, Encino Man, you know, so, yeah.
So I liked his comedy stuff at the time, and he'd already done George of the Jungle, I think, by then, which I loved George of the Jungle cartoon, and, you know, the movie wasn't great, but it was okay, you know, so, like, I was kind of ready to enjoy it, but, I don't know, you never know what you're going to get. So, this was a pleasant surprise at a time where I don't think I was going to the movies as much, or maybe this was the year that I started going to the movies a lot. I'm not sure if it was 99 or 2000. I don't remember anymore. But more surprisingly, I guess, to me, is that rewatching it is still held up very well. Like, the joke still landed for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I can't say the same for all 4 movies, but for this one,
hell no.
This one, yeah, it definitely held up.
Yeah. I'm already made the Scooby-Doo reference, but there was the one scene where Burns was like, my glasses, and all I could think of was Velma. One thing,
yes.
and this is such a weird note that I have, is the ending credits, the initial music right before so you got the credits before they get to like listing out the cast. Now the music's done by Jerry Goldsmith, who's a really highly regarded, guy in the film industry. The music didn't match the tone or anything of this movie at all, and I'm sitting there like, why? Why did you choose this music? I know it's like a really, really stupid thing to complain about, but I paid attention to all the movies, and only 2 out of the 4 got it right. Like, this one really didn't hit the mark until, like, then they got to the cast, and then the music shifted to something that made more sense to this movie. I don't know why I expected more from Jerry Goldsmith, I guess. I
don't know. I do want to bring up another scene that I love from this one, though, is the first time Benny runs into Imhotep, and he's praying on the cross, and then that doesn't work. He pulls out the whole jumble of charms, and he starts Buddha, Taoism, and then he finally hits on Judaism,
Hebrew.
and Imhotep recognizes the Hebrew.
It's like, oh yeah, I could have some use for you. Yeah. Also, another thing that, I'm guessing you noticed in the 3 Mummy movies is that they always had a kind of wacky pilot character in all 3 movies, and all 3 of them were good characters. Winston Havelock or Havelock?
Winston Havelock, RAF, British.
He was my favorite. In the short time that he was on there, he brought so much joy to me. So I feel like I need to recognize his greatness.
You know what? I forgot until I was watching it that fucking Davos was the pilot in the 4th one.
Yeah. Also, and this is just going to be a weird reference for people that aren't you and I, but so many times when they had to move the mirrors around to get the light reflected, and all I could think of was Resident Evil 5. Because you have to do that in the temple. And there's a lot of this movie that I was like kind of envisioning a little bit of Resident Evil 5. Just throwing that out there.
You know what it reminded me of? Because that's the first time I saw that, and I go back to it, was the ending of Legend. Only you didn't have to have the sprite chick fly up the top of the chimney to wake up the dwarf on the top.
Right. Obviously.
So, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say about part 1?
I liked that Imhotep wasn't... He was a villain without being... Like, they actually explained everything early on without, like, you hating him for the first 80% of the movie, and then all of a sudden giving his backstory, and you're like, oh, he wasn't that bad of a guy at all, like, circumstances. I thought that was kind of important.
I still question the decision on, like, yes, I can understand that by giving him the Handar, you make him suffer for eternity. But the fact is that, like, if he can get out of it, he has unlimited power. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point. And I liked in all 3 Mummy movies, it's like, well, if this guy gets loose, then the world's going to end. Every single time. Like, I don't know.
I like how in Mummy Returns, Stunhead is like, oh, yes, the old end of the world ploy. Doing that
exactly.
Again. All right, so I guess we'll go into the Mummy Returns then. This came out, it says it came out in 2001. I don't remember what time it came out in 2001. But I don't remember seeing this one in a theater.
I do, just because it was, as I said, The Rock. It came out May 4th, 2001.
Maybe I did then. I don't know.
College classes may have depend on you know, a variety of things, but you know, like this for me was a slam dunk in my mind, because I'm like, okay, love The Mummy, love The Rock. All right, let's go for it, you know. But I don't know. This is gonna probably make me sound grouchy, but I really didn't care to add a kid to the movie.
You're grouchy.
Yeah, that's fine. I accept that.
It's cool.
But what I accept even less is that Evie is suddenly like a badass fighter. Like, what? Did she go like train under Pai Mei like after having the baby? Like, what happened where she's suddenly like super badass?
Yeah, she's just remembering her past life.
And then there's the past life. Did you like the past life?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna come out and say it straight out. The Mummy Returns is my favorite one out of the whole the franchise.
Really?
Yes, I like it better than the first one.
No shit. I did not expect that.
It's one of the only movies where they do a direct sequel that I can remember that I really think that they did a good job of building on the characters.
They did. They really did. They went back to the well on a few things, and some people say that's a good thing, some say that's a bad thing. I guess I don't really want to have an opinion either way, because I get why you want to go back to the well as long as you don't overdo it, right? Like the domino effect thing, wacky pilot. I don't know. There's a few things that they kind of went back to. And that's fine though, because it also allows for continuity purposes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you the wacky fucking temple pillars shit. You know, for the most part, I would agree with you. Adding a kid to the mix does not necessarily make a better fucking story. I don't think this kid did great, but I don't think he brought it down.
He didn't bring the film down, no. They did a lot of cool things, but all right, one thing that I guess irked me, and I'm jumping all the way to the end, is like, it felt to me like the Scorpion King was suddenly like a bad fighter like the last like minute of his duel at the end. I didn't quite understand why all of a sudden he was such a good fighter and then he just kind of made too many mistakes.
Yeah, you know, all right. Overall, just because we're bouncing around now, the weakest part of the movie is The Rock.
Yeah.
And
it is.
And it's not his fault, because as we've seen, you know, from 21 years later, you know, The Rock does a lot of things where he's, you know, Will Smithing it. He's just The Rock in it, but he can put out a decent performance. And he just didn't have the right director to pull that out of him in his very first movie.
Correct.
Like,
I would agree.
The opening scene, which is most of the spot where we actually see him as The Rock, it's not horrible, but it's not great either. I mean, the only thing that really tears me out of it is when we get to the end and we see him as the Scorpion King. And like for a series that did so much well with CGI, to do that poorly with CGI,
what the hell were they thinking?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't, because it's like we said, you know, there's things in the first one and things in this one that were like cutting edge uses of CGI for the time, and then you see like how plastic his fucking face looks in that when he's translated into the Scorpion King, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I actually took a picture, because as I'm watching it, there's a scene where two of the bad guys in red, they're about ready to get exploded by, I want to say, Brendan Frasier's character. And right before the explosion, I paused it and I noticed, like, they don't even look like people. They look like mannequins. It's such a poorly shot thing. Like, there was a lack of experience, I guess, maybe. I don't know, like, what they were thinking by, like, letting some of these things slip in the movie. Like, something like that. I shouldn't be seeing plastic or rubbery-looking faces.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can think of is I don't know, shooting on film was definitely different than shooting digital.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I don't know how much of it was done green screen.
Yeah. I mean, that one was a very practical situation. There was also, gosh, was it this one where she was, like, tied up and, like, they were dragging her and, like, they showed, like, from her face and, like, showing her she was being dragged and it looked really funky? It's even the right movie.
She was tied up and dragged, but I don't remember that scene that you're talking about. Like, seeing her look really funky. So,
okay, to be perfectly honest, it may not even be the right movie. I've watched about 15 movies the past 3 days. So
yeah, that's a lot to ask you to remember.
But by and large, they got it right. But with that moment when you see The Rock as CGI'd, what the... Just
see, and the other thing that gets me when you see him CGI'd like that, that's bad CGI. But overall, like, I think you look at almost any action scene in this one compared to the first one, and you got to be like, they fucking way up their game in how they filmed the action.
Yeah, and I notice throughout the whole franchise, but especially in this one and the next one. As far as the Mummy, I'm not talking about Scorpion King. They basically are like, let's just follow Star Wars here. Let's have 3 fights happening at the same time, culminating together. Tried and true method. When you get it right, it works really well. And by and large, like, because you have what was his name, Ardeth, doing his fighting. You got her doing her freaking Melina versus Katana shit going on, which was fun as hell. Although, all right. I'm curious what you think about this. There are times when, like, I appreciate a good choreographed fight as well, you know, because they're all choreographed. Like, I mean, you know, to say that it's not, but sometimes it looks so overly choreographed, like, I don't know how you get a smooth transition sometimes for actors and actresses that don't normally do, like, fights. There were times where the little fights were really good with the 2 women, and other times where I was just like, oh gosh, they should have edited it or found a different way to do something. I don't know. And yet, like, in Kill Bill, for example, it was probably the same shit, but it was somehow more entertaining to me. Maybe because there was a lot of blood and limbs flying all over the place. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Also, was there really a need for the Scorpion King to actually have a scorpion bottom half? Like, would that fight not have actually been better if he was still just a normal dude? Like, I think that battle would have been better.
I don't know. Because then it would have been like, he would have had to have powers, you know, otherwise, why is he gonna, you know, how is he gonna end the world kind of shit.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if him having a scorpion bottom half...
You just wanted to see him wrestle people.
Yeah, I didn't get no rock bottom.
I know.
I didn't get no German suplex, nothing. I got the people's eyebrow. That's what I got.
We got a lot of the people's eyebrow.
And for that, I'm grateful. I like that they brought back Patricia Velasquez.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one of those things where it's like, okay, So, I mean, we had to sacrifice Evie in the first one in order to be able to bring Inoxunamon back, but somehow this woman, who is the reincarnation of Inoxunamon, is already back, and alive, and obviously was alive, 7 years ago, because she's an adult.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the continuity and the character growth is what made me really like this one. Between Rick, between Evelyn, between Jonathan, Ardeth, even seeing when Imhotep comes back and he sees Rick for the first time and he's like, you. And then they summon back the mummies, the guard mummies from the end, and Rick's like, oh, not these guys. And they do the growl at him again, and he's like, fuck.
This is the one that had the pygmies too, right?
Yeah, the pygmies. And again, this is another one where the humor hit for me still. I mean, some of it was a little over the top, like Izzy getting shot in the ass, going on about that for so long. But, again, they didn't really have a Kevin J. O'Connor character, but they kind of did with the one, slight-looking guy dressed up in the red and black.
Yeah.
And there's the scene at the end where he and Jonathan are running next to each other, and Jonathan's like, oh, a burial ground, they can't come in here.
Yes.
And then the pygmy vaults in and stabs the guy, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't think they could.
Alright. One thing I cringed at when I saw it the first time, I'm still cringing at it now, and maybe I shouldn't be cringing at it, but I just think the balloon looks stupid. That's all I got. I just don't like the balloon.
I get why they did it, though, because it's easier for them. If they're doing an airplane, they're going to be bypassing the train. And it gives them a place to be able to have conversations.
Again, her jumping off the thing, when she was in her
memory state. Yeah,
I was like, why is it? I still didn't quite understand why that prompted her to do that, I guess, but plus alright, so when somebody jumps off, then somebody follows them and makes the jump and can somehow catch up to them because gravity somehow works differently and are able to grab them. I always am there for that.
That's a movie trope.
It is. I'm always good with it. I really like the gong because it sounded like Mortal Kombat at times. So there's a couple Mortal Kombat things going on in this movie for me, which I'm appreciative of.
Dude, I want to know how come it always broke down into the good guys dual wielding and the bad guys two handing. During the fight with Nefertiri and Inoxunamon back in the memory, it gets to the point where Inoxunamon's got the spear and Nefertiri's got the two axes, and then Rick fighting what's his face, Imhotep at the end. He's got the two axes, and Imhotep's got the dual bladed. I don't even know what the fuck you'd call that.
Are they scimitars? Maybe. No, they weren't. Were they?
No, he had the he had basically a quarterstaff, but it had the two crescent blades on the ends of it.
Oh, okay, yes, those. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, just little tropes like that, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can understand why people wouldn't like it as much as the first, but I don't think it's bad. I think it was still a good movie in the franchise, even if people are looking at it objectively different than I am.
I think for a sequel effort, this was really good. This was a really strong sequel, and the rating shows it, I think. 6.4 for a sequel on IMDb is pretty damn high, quite frankly.
Yeah. All right, so, I mean, is there...
Also...
Go ahead, yeah.
The credit music, much better.
You know what? I didn't realize this either, but I'm a huge live fan. I've seen them live 3 times. I didn't realize they did that song for it until I got the DVD edition, and, that was one of the extras.
Like the group that did like Lightning Crashes.
Yeah, they did the song.
Drama.
They did the song "Forever Will Not Be Long Enough for Us."
Okay. I didn't recognize them. Okay, that wasn't a bad. That was actually a good song to play for that.
Yeah, it worked. I listened. I remember listening to it a lot on the extras on the DVD when this the movie came out. All right. I mean, if there's anything else you want to say about this one?
Nope.
You know what? The one thing I liked, like, the fact that they had like all of the hundreds or thousands of magi, like following them, and then they get into the fight with all the Anubites, and I thought they looked pretty cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I thought that they did a pretty good job of the CGI for them, which is also why, like, part of like why the fuck the Scorpion King sucks so badly is like astonishing.
Right, because everything else really looked pretty on point. The Scorpion King just looks so out of place compared to everything else that they did in it.
And there's a scene where they're finishing up the army, and they all cheer, and then they look, and there's like a larger army running at them, and they're like, "Oh fuck!" But my question is, before they realize that the second army's coming at them, like they hear something, and then I don't know if you remember how they filmed it, but they go to Oded Fair or Ardeth Bay, like running through the rest of them, and they cut to slow motion, and they like fast break like 3 times to show him moving before he gets to the edge of them to look out and see that the other army's coming. I just thought that was like a really weird and interesting choice of like how to film it.
Yeah, I would agree. The use of slow motion. Each film they use slow motion in more and more scenes, I think. I noticed. So, it's interesting when they did and didn't use it. I understand what you're saying. It's unique.
All right, so do you want to hit Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, or do you want to hit the Scorpion King?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's start hurling some insults here because I'm pretty sure we're on the same page here.
I just rewatched this, finished about 40 minutes before we started our podcast tonight, and I fell asleep 3 times on my rewatch
so
analysis of the fucking movie that we're going to be talking about in less than an hour.
I started falling asleep, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, there's about 45 to 60 minutes that I didn't cover with any notes whatsoever, and that's okay. Gosh, I just want to tear this movie a new one. I love Maria Bello. I am such a huge fan of her, and I understand that they didn't have access to Rachel, supposedly because she didn't want to be in a film where it was portrayed that she was the mother of a 21-year-old, and I don't know if that's rumor or true.
What I heard was, and don't quote me because again I don't know if this is true, but
internet quote.
But the guy who was playing her son, who's supposed to be 21, was in actuality only 4 years younger than she was in real life. And she was like, "You want me to buy that I'm 20 some odd fucking years older than this guy?"
Yeah, she looked so good in the second one, by the way. Like, she looked great in Mummy Returns.
She really did. That was part of the reason too why I could buy her pulling some shit off, was because she looked like, not necessarily that she knew how to do it, but she looked like an adventurer, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Like I said, Maria Bello really, she didn't take anything away from this. This film failed for every reason that's not Maria Bello related, and I'm not sure who you would have cast differently that would have done any better. That, when you lose an actor or actress, like, I get it. Like, it's rarely the same, but
it's weird seeing Maria Bello with dark hair too.
Yes, it's very weird with her with dark hair, and she just didn't have the same chemistry with Brendan.
Yeah, I mean that was very apparent. And
she tried, but
first step down, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and it's nobody's fault. I mean, some people just don't have chemistry together, and the script didn't help them either in that regard.
Right. And I mean, for all the things that I didn't like about this movie, I can't even. That's not even like in my top 5 probably. But it was just a noticeable thing. The time jump. Okay, so we're jumping now X amount of years, and Brendan Fraser pretty much still looks the same as he did in The Mummy, but by now he's 22 years older.
Yeah, that's they didn't bother trying to age them at all, which is another fucking failure.
Yeah, like get a little salt and pepper in the hair, something, just something. Like he doesn't have to look like an old ass man, but something to age him a little bit.
Yes.
Or don't do the 21-year-old storyline, which I don't know. Am I wrong in saying that Alex's storyline may have been the most boring part of this whole thing?
No, you're not. And if you said that, hey, the weakest part of the movie was Alex, I would probably agree with you.
Like, young Alex was far more entertaining than adult Alex.
Yeah, and not only that, but I normally would put like a child performance, you know, at least 2 points below an adult's performance, even if it's just as good, just because kids. And
right. I agree.
I would say that kid in The Mummy Returns sounds better than the guy in this.
Yeah, and then you get to, okay, I'm like, oh, Jet Li. Keep in mind, this is the very first time I've seen this movie, was today.
Oh, shit, you've never seen it before?
No, so I'm kind of excited, right? I like Jet Li. He was the one that was in Cradle to the Grave, right?
Yeah, so imagine the first thing you see Jet Li in is Lethal Weapon 4. And then you're like, wow, this guy's awesome. So you go back and you find a copy of everything that Blockbuster or Video World or wherever you're living at the time has of him, you know, from the Chinese days. And you follow everything that he does as it comes out in America, as it comes out, you know, Romeo Must Die, Cradle to the Grave, all that shit. And then you're like, oh, he's going to be the bad guy in the new Mummy. And you've just been a Jet Li fanboy since you first see him. And then you see this movie in the theater. I just want you to understand how I felt when it was over.
The disappointment, I'm so happy I didn't see this in the theater, because this crushed my spirits a little bit. And my spirit's been pretty crushed this whole damn week, so this was like stepping on my throat level of disappointment. Yeah, what the hell, man? Like, what? You don't even need Jet Li in that role if that's the role if that's how you're going to write it. Am I wrong?
No, I mean,
you could have just really put, and sorry to say this, any Asian-looking gentleman you could have put in that role as the Emperor that could act competently, and it wouldn't have taken anything away from what we saw on screen, right?
Oh, think about like how possibly maybe more gravity it would have had if you gave it to somebody like Mako or James Wong. You know, because I mean, if you look at the amount of actual martial arts that Jet Li did, it's not a lot.
No, I would have actually rather had somebody that was a better dramatic actor than an action star.
Yeah, like James Wong would have fucking crushed it for that.
Yeah. Just a real missed opportunity all around, and just horrible casting for a role. The best casting that they had was Liam Cunningham, who didn't have a ton, but he had some, and I really liked David Calder as Roger Wilson. I thought he did a really good job. Yeah,
I mean, it's the same thing, like Michelle Yeoh's in it. She's fucking underutilized.
Isabella, I don't know how, Leong or Long, I don't know. Mm-hmm. She was good, though, as Lynn.
Yeah.
Both were very good. Those two ladies were both probably better in their roles than Maria Bello was.
Yeah, and again, yeah, like, you know, one of the things I really liked her in that I don't hear get brought up very much was the remake of Assault on Precinct 13.
I still haven't seen that.
Well, then I guess you'll have to watch it to get the reference. Anyways, yeah, this to me felt like an attempt to cash in on something that had been successful, moderately successful previously. Let's throw some big Chinese names in there, and hopefully we'll get a piece of the Chinese market. And we're going to throw a bunch of action, spectacle, and money at special effects and hope that excuse me, that convinces people to come and see our movie.
Yeah, but the story was never there. First and foremost, was there really a mummy?
I mean, no, not really.
So how the fuck you calling it the mummy?
I mean, there are closer examples to what is considered a mummy in China than something like that. So,
right, like,
and then again, like at the movie ends, Johnson's like, "I'm going to Peru," and then he's like, "And the very next year, mummies were found in Peru." Shit like that.
God.
Like
that cracked me up. All right, so because I am straight up admitting I lost attention a lot of times as we discussed. What the hell is the big ass monster that Jet Li kind of turned into?
Well,
because I know there was Yetis. What was he though?
Well, when they're going to Shangri-La after they bring Rick back to life, when he gets stabbed, they're like, yeah, if the Emperor gets into the fountain, he'll be able to turn himself into any monstrous form out of our nightmares. So, I mean, he just turned into King Ghidorah from, the Godzilla franchise.
All right, true thing. I'm looking at my notes, and so after Wilson double-crossed people and works with General Wang, which is probably like the first quarter or third of the movie, right?
I would say like the first eighth.
Okay.
Yeah.
After that, I write lots of stuff, and then my very next note is Jet Li is a monster now. That's how much I skipped of this freaking movie.
Probably like an hour and a half.
Like, this movie
yeah.
really...
It was...
Really? Oh, God. And once again, because I made a point to criticize before, I didn't like the music and the credits.
Yes.
They tried.
That was the one I was thinking of at the end when you said that for the first one. I was like, well, I hope this is one of the two that he's going to say did not hit it, because if he says it hit it, I'm going to be like, what the fuck were you thinking, Kent?
No, okay, if you're going to do this in China, then give us some kind of an Asian feel for a sound. Instead, it felt like something you'd hear in London or America around that time.
And
why?
Not only that, but I like how literally in the animations and the credits, they literally go back and do the entire movie. So if you don't want to know what happens in the movie, you can just watch the beginning credits, and it'll show you the whole movie all over again.
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, hey, they kind of did that in Prey, though, as well.
Yes, they did.
But they did it much better in Prey.
The music worked in Prey.
So, here's my question. Why is the Emperor Captain Planet? He has mastery over fire, water, earth, wood, and metal. I don't know why he doesn't have mastery over wind and heart, but still.
Because those weren't the elements in China.
Oh.
Yes.
So, how is wood an element?
I don't know what it is. I mean,
isn't wood earth? Like, aren't those basically the same damn thing?
No, because trees grow out of the ground. They're not part of the ground. I don't fucking know, dude. I don't know.
I was confused by why they called it elements.
Probably because Lao Tzu, when he wrote the Book of Five Elements, included those as the five elements. Oh. But I don't know why he did,
Okay, fair enough. Well, yeah, I have no love for this, and if I never watch this movie again, I'm okay with it.
I'm really glad that I only bought it on DVD, and I never bought the Blu-ray.
I'm really glad that I probably paid like $2 for this.
All right, so moving on, we go to what would have chronologically been the third movie.
Yes.
Based on production, but it's the only one that's kind of like a spin-off, which is itself inspired like 8 direct-to-video spin-offs.
Oh, God,
I've only seen 2 of them, and they did not get better. To the Scorpion King, which was basically The Rock's really first starring role, if I remember correctly.
Yes. True story. If you were to have purchased the Blu-ray with digital codes of the Scorpion King franchise, you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm going to get all 5 movies on digital. No, you get 4 out of the 5.
Which one don't they give you?
I think it's like part 2 or 4.
Interesting.
It's like one of those in the middle. I was like, what the fuck? Like, you... I don't know. Am I wrong in saying, like, you can't advertise, like, Blu-ray plus digital, like, without saying accept? I don't know.
Well, I mean, obviously they did it, but I would expect, them to say something for it if they're going to not include one of them.
It was messed up. That's the best I can offer, and, I mean, I think I still end up bought the other one just collector's reasons, but, yeah. Anyways.
I'm interested in hearing what your thoughts on the Scorpion King are.
Alright, I often get accused of not being a huge action movie guy. And here's the thing. I've told you this before. This is one of only 2 movies that I saw in the theater 3 times, which is my personal record. I adore the hell out of this stupid movie. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's great. I'm going to sit here and tell you, though, it's so entertaining. They cut out all the bullshit. This is like an hour and a half long. They just say, screw it. We're not going to worry too much about storyline. We're going to give you little bits and pieces. We're going to give you lots of action. We're going to give you even a little romance. And you're just going to have fun. And we're going to remind you that Michael Clark Duncan was in this. Because I'd forgotten he was in it. Big fan.
If you had asked me before we took this on how I would have remembered these movies, it would have been like, oh, I really like The Mummy, and I like The Mummy Returns better. And I really like The Scorpion King, and I kind of liked The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. And if you ask me again how I felt after rewatching them, I'd be like, I still really like The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. I think they hold up. The Tomb of the Dragon Emperor was even worse than I remembered and should never be brought up again in public company. And I have to say The Scorpion King did not hold up as well as I remembered it. Because
I would agree.
I watched it a lot when it came out because I never was into wrestling as much as you guys because, my parents weren't. So I never had friends growing up until you guys who were into it. So there was no reason for me to be watching it, by myself with nobody to turn me on to it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And right when we were like, Eric was starting to introduce me to his group of friends that included you and Kevin and Russ and Jim, and hanging out all together. That was about the time that I remember like Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H, all of those guys just starting to really come out in the wrestling scene. So, yeah, I mean, even though I was never like as big a wrestling fan as you guys, I like The Rock. So, I was curious about what we were going to get from the Scorpion King, if it was going to show us, how he goes from being, this nominal hero that they're showing us in the trailers to being the monster that's going to end the world that we get in The Mummy Returns.
Hell no.
And what we did, we got kind of like a B-grade Conan. But I was okay with that because The Rock was charismatic enough to carry it. And it wasn't a bad movie. It had, again, script problems. But
some of the dialogue was,
yeah. So, but it was, the action scenes were okay, and Kelly Hu is really hot, and oh
god, yeah. She is hot. She's actually quite decent in this. All right, true story. This was a conversation as I was watching it with Eric and Twan. I was like, we got talking about Kelly Hu, and I was like, what else has she been in? And then it was like, X2 as Lady Deathstrike, and she was also in Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. So, there you go.
Yeah, I've seen her on some, like, YouTube stuff. And she still looks good, even though we're talking, what, probably close to 20 years later?
It is 20 years later, yeah.
So rewatching it this time, you can see the growth in The Rock from the Scorpion King to this, or Mummy Returns to this, but he still hadn't, my guess is he still probably hadn't gotten an acting coach yet.
No, because he went right back to wrestling after he did Mummy Returns, so it wasn't until, I think, after this that he started taking more time off to learn his craft.
Yeah.
I think probably he was on set realizing, this is great and I'm having fun, but I need to get better or else this is not going to be a full-time thing. Because
he's probably like, this is way easier than getting the shit kicked out of me in a fucking wrestling ring.
Oh, God, yeah. His hair game sucked, too, by the way. I understand why it existed the way it did, but I didn't like how it looked on him.
So, I mean, you can see there's lots of times where, like, they're going to get ready to do an action scene and he's standing by waiting for, his mark to hit. Kind of, like, bouncing back and forth. Some of the other, like, Michael Clark Duncan was amazing in The Green Mile. And then you see him in something like this and you're like, what the fuck is going on?
It defies... That character was written really badly.
Yeah.
Because, he was good in Armageddon, which came out before this as well. It wasn't like a huge role in Armageddon, but it was a palpable role. And yet, I don't know, am I wrong in saying that this movie was as weak as it was because it didn't have a strong enough antagonist?
You're not. I mean, like you said, one of the things that a movie needs, if you have somebody playing the straight man, in this case The Rock, is a compelling cast of side characters in order to, hook us in and keep pulling us in to sit around, and see what the straight man is doing. And, the antagonist wasn't that strong. The side characters weren't that strong. A lot of them were basically just fucking tropes.
Arpid felt a lot like Benny in some ways to me.
Yeah, he wasn't bad.
He wasn't bad, but like, skinny con man guy. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
I think the best side character was the damn camel.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about kids. Arpid was the best. The kid was, Bernard Hill is a good actor. He's done like fucking amazing movies. So One Note as the fucking gunpowder guy. Kelly Hu was okay, but even now watching it back, some of her performance was pretty stilted too. So a lot of it probably relied on just her appearance. And then you get to somebody like Memnon, and, it probably goes to show you that, like, I haven't seen the guy in anything until I just saw him recently in The Sandman. A show that came out in 2022, 20 years after the fucking last thing I remember seeing this guy in.
Wow. That really does put some things in perspective.
And, like, Peter Facinelli I find fascinating because, I've seen him do decent acting, and it's probably the best examples are, like, the fucking Twilight movie. I'm like, you put this guy in it that's going to fucking take him in. And I was like, oh, wow. It's funny. You're giving me the best performance of your life in the worst fucking... But, like, in this, like, he's fucking horrible. Be quiet because my father tells you to. And I like...
Once again, he was a shitty antagonist.
I like how he goes out like a chump. Literally. Doesn't even get to swing his weapon at anybody. The only one who gets any licks in is fucking Ralph Moeller, and if you know who he is, I mean, he fucks people up in any movie where he's a bad guy, whether or not he dies or not.
Right. I'm looking at Ralph, and I see that he's in Gladiator I can't picture who he is in Gladiator.
He is.
Why can't?
When he gets to be the gladiator and they send him to Rome,
like a slave.
He is the giant German guy with them.
Okay, so he's awesome.
Yeah, he's the one who when he's like, we have a better chance of surviving this if we stay together. He's the one who goes off by himself and pushes over the chariot.
Okay, so he's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, check. So then why did they put such two really, really weak individuals as the antagonists? Because if you gave Dwayne something to work off of, if you gave Michael Clark Duncan half a decent character to work off of, and maybe gave Kelly Hughes something other than, hey, you're going to be like probably cold in this outfit at night, but you're hot. God, this was a movie meant for guys and guys only, I feel.
I feel like this is the movie that existed prime time in like the Maxim/FHM era.
Yeah. I remember I went to, I can't remember what the hell the college was, to see my friend Amanda, and then we went with her roommate and her roommate's boyfriend to see this on opening night, and I was pretty, like, I was like 50-50 that I was going to get laid after that. But here's the thing. I get back and I realize that's probably not going to happen, and I still have Godsmack stuck in my head, so the rest of the night I just started singing I Stand Alone. I did not get laid, but I stood alone.
One thing I will give this movie, though, is it's got, like, for me anyway, probably, like, top 5 movie soundtrack.
Really good music, yes.
Yeah.
So basically they're just like, well, we can have good music or we have good antagonists. We can't have both? No. Okay.
Yeah, I think I have to put this one up there almost with Queen of the Damned and the Crow soundtrack. Yeah, this is just a really good soundtrack. And even for the bands that people don't like, they still picked, like, Nickelback. I like Nickelback, but a lot of people don't. They still picked, like, a good song to put on the soundtrack for them.
Right, I agree. Like, this soundtrack is specifically known for the Godsmack song, but it was loaded, and like even throughout the movie, just the instrumental stuff was good.
Yes. Yeah. So
to me, like, I know this movie isn't like a strong movie by any means, but it's an entertaining as hell, mindless. I can just turn this actually woke me back up.
It's a guilty pleasure. Unfortunately, it's not as big of a guilty pleasure as I remembered it being.
It existed at a time, and it served its purpose, and in another 10 years, I can watch this again and be like, all right, I remember why I loved this movie, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I will straight up it had a great soundtrack. It was entertaining, and I really don't think that without this, I don't think we get The Rock. And I've enjoyed a lot of the other movies that he's done over his career.
Yeah, I would agree. So, I find this to probably be my second most entertaining movie out of the 4 that we talked about, but it's the third best. I'm just saying, entertainment-wise, somehow I get more entertainment out of this than I do Mummy Returns.
Oh, well, I mean, straight up, dude, you were way bigger into the wrestling fandom and franchise than I was, so it makes sense.
Hell, when I post the blog for this, I'm definitely going to get out my action figure. I have a Scorpion King action figure. So, how many people have that?
I don't.
Jealous.
I still wish we had gotten the story of how he goes from being the king at the end to being like this fucking monster that's going to destroy the world.
What was basically is all that we have to go off of it is when he's like, what do you predict for the future? And she's like, well, no kingdom can blah, blah, blah. Like, was that the only...
That's the only thing, because like all of the sequels to this were prequels.
Oh, gosh.
Like, I own the Scorpion King 2, and it was actually pretty decent for direct-to-video. I mean, it was the first thing I saw Randy Couture in as an actor, and he was worse than The Rock was in the Scorpion or in The Mummy Returns.
Oh no!
But
Fantastic.
I would say he was decent by the time he got to like Expendables and Expendables 2. I mean, he didn't have a huge part in either of them, but it wasn't like he was reading a prompter for his lines. So
okay.
But again, they're all prequels. And, like, I want to be like, you were throwing, like, fucking full-on magic and shit into them. And, like, the most magical thing we had in The Scorpion King was, like, the sorceress grabbing a cobra at the end, kind of deal.
Yeah, that whole scene was... I'm looking at the cast for all the other movies, and... not only am I seeing Big Dave Bautista and Kimbo Slice in Part 3, but in Part 4 I'm seeing Barry Bostwick, Rutger Hauer, and M. Emmett Walsh. And Eve Torres. Wow, okay. She used to be in wrestling. And then Part 5 has 2 more wrestlers. So they kept the wrestling thing going as much as they could. Interesting.
Yes.
But... I'm sure they all delineate worse and worse. Although probably like Part 3 or Part 4 is like this rare gem that's not nearly as bad as you would expect it to be. That's usually how some of these, that's how Children of the Corn worked. Like, you'd occasionally get like one rare one that was okay.
I find it funny too that there's several years between each one of them. Like there were 6 years between Scorpion King and Scorpion King 2, and then 4 between 2 and 3, and 3 between 3 and 4. Usually when they're trying to cash in on that stuff, they're doing it like every year or so.
Now, all right, from your knowledge, are they all about the exact same character?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
Scorpion King 2 is, Kid Matthias.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I have nothing more to add.
I don't either. So I know you said you had seen certain movies.
I have.
So let us hear it.
Okay, so let us go back in time just a little bit. Last time that we talked, we discussed Prey, I believe.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, we did.
Did we talk about the other Predator movies?
We did not, no.
Okay, so there was... because I'd already reviewed the Predator and Predator 2. But I never reviewed Predators, or... was it just Predator or The Predator? I don't know.
Predator.
Whatever the two doesn't. Yeah, okay. So... Predators has this solid cast in theory, except Adrian Brody is kind of he's not supposed to be Schwarzenegger, but he's still like a merc. It really, I don't know, that movie didn't really work for me. The best part was Lawrence Fishburne, quite frankly, and he's on screen for 5-10 minutes maybe. You have Topher Grace, Alice Braga, who I'm a huge fan of, Walton Goggins, Danny Trejo, Derek Mears.
It was a great cast, and I saw it in the theater, and yeah, I think again it's one where it's just let down by the script. There were some really cool ideas in it, and then it focused on
Cube in the Jungle.
It focused on wrong, I don't give a fuck about spoilers for a movie that's been out that long. Topher Grace being a serial killer at the end, I'm like, seriously? You're getting fucking picked off by these fucking aliens, and you can't put your fucking self on hold long enough to not kill the woman, until you escape?
Right. Very frustrating movie. And I did not give it a good review, quite frankly. And I wanted to, because the concept to me is Cube in a jungle. Random strangers wake up and, hey, we gotta work together. I love that idea in movies. I love when that stuff happens. Even in The Hunt, I liked it, and that was a quirky movie. This just... Adrian Brody was not right for the lead, and I don't blame him either.
No, he definitely gave his all. I mean, he went in and fucking. He didn't really put on weight, but he put
on 25 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, seriously.
Ridiculous. I mean, I was going to do that after watching it, and then a day later I said, no, not for me. But, someday maybe. But to go from that to The Predator, which has a dumb idea, still has a good cast, but what they did is that, in my opinion, at the very least, while I don't really necessarily consider Boyd Holbrook a household name by any means, even though he's done some stuff, I didn't think he was right for the top guy when you have somebody, along the lines of Thomas Jane in your cast. But then the more you watch it, you're like, no, Thomas Jane and Keegan-Michael Key working off each other as, kind of gay dudes, but one being the funny guy, the other one with Tourette's, those guys were perfect in their roles, and I wouldn't change that. Like, Boyd didn't hurt the product as the lead. He just was unlikely. Trevante Rhodes from Bird Box, he had a good role. Sterling K. Brown is an incredibly underrated actor. Really huge fan.
Yes, Sterling K. Brown is good.
Like, this movie had good side characters, even though the plot was worse than Predator's. The writing was better for the dialogue, and therefore somehow more enjoyable for me. Oh, Alfie Allen, I forgot, and Jake Busey.
I am not gonna lie. I'm not a big fan of Olivia Munn. I don't think she can really act.
There's a reason why I didn't specifically name her.
I am a big fan of Yvonne Strahovski, but that's
of who?
The other chick in it.
Okay. Was that the wife?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really liked her in Dexter. I'm a fan from her being in Mass Effect, and she's really hot. So
she is.
But
also,
yeah,
the son was in Good Boys, I believe, which was a funny as hell movie. Yeah, Good Boys. Go on.
Anyways, yeah, and like, I don't like having an autistic son. Seeing people try to portray autism in a positive way is a good thing, but like seeing them try to portray autism as like a superpower, doesn't really, hit me in the right way.
I can that makes sense to me. It's really weird how, when did we even really start having characters with autism? It's only past 10 years or so? 20 years? Maybe?
I remember a movie with Liv Tyler and I think it was John Lithgow called Silent Fall.
Okay.
That came out in Richard Dreyfuss came out in 1994. That was the first time I remember really seeing something about a person with autism.
Okay, so it's been longer, I guess, than I would have realized.
But, it hasn't been anywhere near as prevalent as it is now. But, the scary thing is, like talking to doctors, supposedly the numbers now are it's like 1 in every couple thousand people is on the spectrum in some way. By 2060, it's going to be 1 in every 64 people are on the spectrum.
I actually thought that number would be... I thought more people than that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Autism's just... It's one of those weird things. I got to learn about it when I worked at Liberty for the 3.5 years.
Yeah.
It was something I just didn't have any knowledge of until then, really. And it was a really interesting thing to understand because, not everything's really well known about it yet.
Oh, and it's really, when people say spectrum, it really is, because you can have, people just this side of catatonic up to people who function and don't even realize they're there. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
But to get back to the Predator, yeah.
Yes.
It was fucking, I don't know, it was bad. Like, I have a friend at work who will forgive anything with a predator or an alien in it. Like, he's forgiving for Prometheus, and I fucking hate that movie. But even he is like, the Predator sucked.
Huh. See, I would watch The Predator again before I'd watch Predators. I know I'm in the minority based on everything that I read review-wise, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I didn't rate either high.
All right. So, and you finished Prey.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
At the end of The Predator, when they unveil, like, oh, we got some secret thing, because now we have the kid working in this top-secret laboratory, whatever. Mm. Am I the only one that was kind of hoping that there was going to be a xenomorph in there?
No, you're not.
Okay. So, next movie I did. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out this year on Netflix, that was another direct sequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre of 1974. This movie was bad. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat this in any way. This movie was bad. This movie didn't make a whole lot of sense. Here's the thing. So they have this lady, because they don't have access to Marilyn Burns. I don't remember if I think she's still alive, but she didn't want the role. So they replaced her with this other lady to portray the original survivor, Sally. So she's looking all like Jamie Lee Curtis in the new Halloween movies. Okay, cool. Here's the problem. Then you show who Leatherface is, and there's no question who Leatherface is, unlike, in, say, the movie Leatherface. There's no surprise. It's just the big dude. He has normal, solid black hair. There's no gray, no salt and pepper. Now, we're saying from 1974 till now, dude would have been in his 60s. What? I don't understand. I'm not trying to always focus on hair, but in this case, he's in his 60s and not... I mean, come on, let's be real. He's not going out and getting some just for men hair coloring, okay? Like, we know that. He ain't doing that. He hides a chainsaw behind a wall in his bedroom. Now, why is he built a wall to cover up his damn chainsaw? Makes no sense. Did we get the cliche, hey, I need to hide, let me find a closet that has horizontal slats so we can have the jump scare? Did we have a scene where Leatherface is underwater for an exorbitant amount of time, but when he comes up, he pops up so high, he pops up so he's out of the water where only like his knee to his foot is underwater? Nope, no person can do that.
I can't.
But yet, this movie was beyond inexplicable, and it's bad, and I don't recommend it. And one final thing I'll say about it is, I went to IMDb, I looked at reviews, and I got 25 reviews per page. So I wrote down the number of each review out of 1 through 10. I then added up, did the average. The average was 2.96 out of 10. And they weren't wrong. That movie sucked. Don't recommend it. Please listen to me, people. Do not watch it.
Damn. That's got to be bad when you're giving, like, recommendations like that.
Normally I would say, like, hey, go ahead and watch it if you want a good time, whatever. There's some kills, there's some blood and stuff, but no. And then comes our friend Michael Myers, because I never watched Halloween Kills, and obviously Halloween Ends came out this previous weekend. So, Halloween 2018, you haven't watched any of the three, right?
I watched 2018. I watched that one. I haven't seen Halloween Kills or Halloween Ends.
So, here's my recommendation for anybody that's just seen Halloween 2018.
Stop.
Just imagine that Michael died in that fire, and you're good. You are so good. Like, that's enjoyable, right? No. No, because in Halloween Ends, we get a high body count, really high body count. Jamie Lee Curtis, although she's on screen a lot, like, does jack shit. It's more around the granddaughter and her boyfriend that she broke up with, but now is good. It's about Tommy and I can't remember the other girl, the original kids that Jamie Lee Curtis was babysitting in the original. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then there's a mob that wants to end the madness, except they chase down the wrong guy, and it's just a guy that escaped when Michael escaped. And we have a big crowd beatdown finally when they do get Michael. Except nobody, like, uses a gun. When they use a knife, do they stab him in the head? No. They stab him in between the shoulder blades once. And then everybody's like, yay, we did it. We somehow stopped this guy who's been getting up from everything. Guess what? They didn't stop him. This was stupid, but it was schlocky fun, and some people, I think, can enjoy it, without taking it too seriously. I know that sounded negative. No, here's negative. Halloween Ends. So, I know that you've watched some, if not all, of the Friday the 13th. We all remember Friday the 13th Part 5. The one where Jason's not the killer, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's one of the most despised Friday the 13th. So what does Halloween Ends do? They make it about making a new killer that's not Michael. Mm-hmm. What the fuck? And the guy, he tries hard. He really, like, they do try with the acting, but they're on fucking cruise control on the writing, everything. Yeah, in the end, they quote-unquote kill Michael. Honestly, by that point, I wanted Jamie Lee and Michael to tag team this new schmuck. I was so fed up with this. So, I'm just saying, if you've seen 2018, stop there with happy, fond memories, and maybe in a few years we'll get, a sixth, timeline to the Halloween franchise.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, when you think about it, like, who wants to basically cover one of the all-time most highly disregarded Friday the 13th movies? Like, that's not a good idea. I don't know what they were thinking. I watched VFW, which I think I've talked about before. Has a great cast. Has Stephen Lang, George Wendt, William Sadler, the dude who was the sensei in Cobra Kai, that dude. Mm-hmm. And it also has the dude from The Crow and The Warriors, the guy that goes, "Warriors, come out to play." That dude. I could have done that better if I had a full voice. Anyway, now that movie is still delightful, and I highly recommend it if you just want a no-nonsense Assault on Precinct 13 type movie.
Okay.
Because the acting's fine for what it is. Oh, and Fred Williamson from Dusk Till Dawn.
Yep.
Like, so I definitely would recommend it. I think, like, pop yourself a bag of popcorn, sit down. It's like, 90-minute movie. I don't think you'll be dissatisfied if you like action movies and like surviving for the night type thing. Then on Hulu, I watched this, what I thought was a movie, but it's part of like a TV series, kind of like how Masters of Horror or Fear itself was. Mm-hmm. This was called, the series is called Into the Dark. And this particular episode was called Tentacles. And all I will offer you is this. If you remember the movie from, like, I don't know, 2012, 2014 called Honeymoon with Rose Leslie from Game of Thrones?
Yeah. Yeah, that one really bothered me that you made after you made me watch it.
Okay, great. You should watch Tentacles. There's a lot more sex in it.
Do I
Titties.
really want to? Does he pull out something that looks like a mucus clot from with?
It's not as disturbing. I'll say that. It's not nearly as disturbing, and there's a lot more sex. So I think it's a fair trade-off.
Okay.
More sex. Yeah.
All right.
I don't want to say
how much
anything
tentacle
more.
sex do I get?
I mean, unless you want to count tentacle going inside of an ear. If you do, then there's some tentacle sex.
Yeah. I mean, for a movie called Tentacles to skip the hentai, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. So, after that, my friends left, and an hour later, I started coughing and to the point where I thought I was going to puke, and then COVID hit me. So then I had however many days where I didn't do anything, and then I was like, I'm feeling better. I rewatched every Nightmare on Elm Street movie except for Part 2. Including the awful reboot, because I'll still watch that instead of Part 2. And I know we're going to eventually do the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I know this. I can't wait for it because I have so many things to say about it. But one thing I want to just offer is this. I think Nightmare on Elm Street 4 may actually be the most definitive Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
That was the Dream Master?
Dream Master, yes. So, I'm just going to throw that out there, something to think about when we eventually do that franchise.
So, to segue off of your Nightmare on Elm Street thing, I've been watching The Midnight Club by, what's his face? The guy who's done all the Stephen King stuff on Netflix.
Is it Mick Garris?
No.
Oh.
And then he's done the, like Hush, House on...
Oh, okay, yeah.
I forgot what his name is. Off the top of my head. Probably because I've been drinking.
Yeah. Flanagan.
Yes. And Heather Langenkamp's been in that. And she plays the doctor of this hospice where they bring in, like, teenagers who've got cancer and whatnot and are in the process of dying. Back in the 90s. It's got a great fucking soundtrack, man. Like, I'm hearing some shit bringing me back, like Harvey Danger, Blind Melon, Toadies, shit like that.
Possum Kingdom?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, a remix of Possum Kingdom is what they play for the trailer. But, so, like, the premise is there's all sorts of shit going down, but these kids all get together every midnight and tell a ghost story, because they're dying. And that's the Midnight Club. So, when they tell the story, it's all of them being put into, new situations, whatever the story is. But Heather Langenkamp has been, besides being the head doctor, she's been, a character in every one of these stories too. So she's gotten a chance to stretch, in like one, she was like a police lieutenant, and another, she was, I don't remember. But, so it's cool to see her as more than just Nancy.
That's awesome, because she was in Shocker ever so briefly, but by and large, I hadn't seen her. She was also in a film, I want to say, called Truth or Dare, and that wasn't that great of a role for her either, so I'm happy she's got a good role.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I don't think I've really seen too much other shit, though. I've been catching up on, like House of the Dragons and Lord of the Rings and whatnot, so I will let you get back to your list.
Well, did you watch any of the 3 things that we decided we were going to watch?
Well, you were going to watch them. Which ones were they again?
Did you watch any of them? One was the Mr. Harrigan's phone.
I have not seen that yet. No, I have not seen Hellraiser yet. And what was the last one?
The other one was the werewolf one.
Oh, I did.
Disney.
I did watch that. I did watch that one.
All right. So let's talk about that.
Werewolf by Night is what he's talking about, guys. Just to put the test, to be better than House of the Dragon on dropping names.
Yeah. Who the hell was this meant for? Like, I'm trying to figure out who the intended audience was for this, because I'm not saying it was good or bad. I'm just asking, who do you think the intended audience is for that?
I just think they're seeing if there is an audience for something like that. Because, I mean, just like in DC, there's a whole fucking world of that shit existing within Marvel, and all we've been getting basically is the same stuff over and over and over again.
Did you like it?
I did. I wasn't sure. I mean, going in, I've seen a lot of reviews where people were like, "Oh yeah, this is really good." So I wasn't sure what to. I tell you what, I was not expecting it to be as fucking funny as it was.
Okay, I'll give you that. Well, first of all, I didn't know what to expect, so there were times where I was like, okay, is it trying to be funny? Is it trying to be dark? Is it trying to be R-rated? I couldn't quite get a grasp on it.
I mean, it was definitely trying to be darker, and I think it succeeded over, most typical MCU shit. I don't think they were aiming for an R rating, but I think, excuse me, one of the ways that they avoided that was by doing the black and white, so they could get away with showing blood, and not have to worry about the color kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
They said that they want to do more of these where they're calling it like an event instead of like, they don't want to do a whole show and they don't want to do a movie, but they want to do like maybe an hour and 15-minute kind of thing. So, I mean, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt to see more off-the-wall stuff.
It was interesting, and I mean, I didn't know any of the characters other than Elsa Bloodstone, and that's only because of the Marvel game that I played. Mm-hmm. So, like, all this was, like, new people to me. I liked, God, what the hell, what was the name of the monster? That Ted?
Yeah,
right?
I don't know why they didn't call it by its name. Well, I mean, they called it by its name, but, like, not its title. It's like, well, I guess I do know it. Like, his name's Ted, but they call him, his like, title is Man-Thing in the comics. He was basically made up to, like, try to draw audience away from Swamp Thing that DC had.
Oh, okay.
Similar kind of character, similar kind of story, kind of shit.
Yeah. Okay. I'm all for them trying new things again. Like, I didn't love this, but I didn't hate it either. I was also incredibly tired and whatnot. So, with that being said, I want to see them do more stuff like this, though, just because it's different.
Well, I would love it if we ever someday get like a real Midnight Suns thing, collaboration. Like Blade and Morbius and Werewolf by Night and Ghost Rider and dealing with all of the vampires and, Frankenstein's monster and werewolves and shit like that have been, out of sight in the MCU until now.
Well, I mean, isn't there like a really strong fan following for that stuff as is? Like, weren't we supposed to get Blade at some point?
I mean, it's still on the table, but like, I guess there have been issues with the script, so like the latest thing we've been seeing is like Mahershala Ali's not happy with it, so.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a bummer. I'd rather them wait until the script was solid than to put out a mediocre product that only gets one film that disappoints,
I mean, the other thing I would say is that I get why they try to drum up so much hype for everything, but when you're putting stuff out, like 5 or 6 years before it's going to come out, that's an awful long time to ask somebody to wait around for a role,
I agree. Yeah, they're you have to have your shit together. That's all. Like,
I mean, part of the reason that putting out the announcements for like Phase 3 and Phase 4, Phase 2 and Phase 3 for the MCU at the time worked was because you had already got all of the actors together. You already had them in a contract, and you were only adding like a handful of new properties. Doing the same thing for Phase 4 and Phase 5, where you're basically rehashing everybody except for like Thor and Doctor Strange. Coming in 2025, we're going to have Blade. Yeah, I'm sure Mahershala Ali's like, dude, I want to do more, Oscar-winning fucking pictures, after following up on my my second win for Green Book.
Right. Which I still haven't seen. That's the one that has Vigo, right?
Yeah, I have it too, and I haven't watched it yet, so I feel bad about that. But, I mean, a lot of times my wife is like, hey, you want to watch something? She's like, what about Green Book? I'm like, I am so fucking tired right now that if I sit down and watch something that doesn't keep me awake, I'm just going to fall asleep, and then I'll be regretful that I didn't watch it and I fell asleep in it.
it's one of those movies that I want to be able to give full attention to. So I get that. All right. Now, okay, you didn't watch Hellraiser, and I don't want to hype it in any way. I'll say this. I think they did for a quote-unquote reboot. I think they did it justice.
Did you have a problem with the chick as Pinhead? Because
hell no.
I had a guy who's pretty fucking misogynistic come up to me and he was like, "Yeah, no, she fucking killed it."
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people probably think I'm misogynistic, and no, like Pinhead, out all like the horror icons, perfect for a female role. Why wouldn't you? Like, you can't make Freddy Krueger into a female because of Freddy's backstory. It just would be weird. You can't have a Michael, a Jason, or a Leatherface as a female. It'd be weird. Jigsaw, possibly, right? You could do that.
Oh, yeah, Jigsaw would work. I mean, like, the reason it's not going to work for, like, a Michael or a Jason is because, I mean, the woman that you would have to be that big.
Right. You have to be so overpowering. Yeah.
Which, I mean, do you know anything about Barbarian?
I've heard nothing but cool things about it.
Okay, I won't give you any. Anyways, but yeah, like a Jigsaw would work, or
Chucky obviously worked, but they already had Tiffany. Yeah. When they brought Tiffany in, that was an acknowledgement that it worked. Leprechaun, they could do a female Leprechaun, I suppose.
Yeah, Wishmaster, something like that. You know, shit's not going to make... I mean, to be completely honest, like, in the original story, in the Books of Blood, I don't think the Cenobites had a sex. I think they were all multi-trans, polysexual, gross beings.
Yeah, that makes sense, though, based on, by being a Cenobite, what you kind of go through in order to be that, right?
Exactly.
No, the girl that they had, the lady, she was awesome. The main actress in it at times kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and it wasn't her fault, it was the character. But the character was meant to rub you the wrong way at times. The story was good, though, dude. Like, it didn't feel like any of the other Hellraisers. It felt original, and it felt fun. Not fun in the twisted sense that horror fans find things fun. I would say it's a breath of fresh air after Hellraiser 5, 6, 7, and 8 were never, ever written. Oh, wait. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. None of them were written to be Hellraiser movies. They were all just scripts that they wedged Pinhead into. So, this, I don't know, to me this felt like a breath of fresh air for the franchise. I'm a big fan of it.
So, good. It's a good chance to see people doing a reboot the right way.
Yes, I think that it works on a lot of levels. So, I look forward to them hopefully continuing down the road. I've heard that it's been kind of successful. So, with success in horror, there's always sequels.
That's weird, though. I mean, because not weird, but in it being successful, it's just weird that like, why are they releasing shit like that and Prey on Hulu? No, I don't know.
Wait, why are they on Hulu?
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, getting a theatrical release?
Well, yeah, I mean, put it on Hulu, but give it a theatrical release, too, not just on Hulu only. You know, if you want it, especially if you're hearing good things about both of these movies that you're putting out, you know, all the critical buzz is good. You're just throwing money away at that point.
You really are, because Prey was really... Prey is officially my second favorite Predator movie.
Yeah, I really, you know, and again, I can't believe, like you said, they did a great job of, like, making a girl power movie work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it succeeded both as a reboot and as an example of, like, how to do that right. And, and it's not going to make anywhere near the money that it should have because of that. Just being on Hulu.
Right, and I'm hoping that actress gets more opportunities now because she showed she could really perform, and I hope that the writers get another stab at, as you conjectured, a different time frame, a different area, etc., etc. I'm all for it. And quite frankly, if I had a daughter, I would be like, as soon as you're 10, we're sitting down watching Prey.
That's awesome.
I'd be like, that and Kill Bill. That's what we're watching in Alien.
All right. Let's bust out card number 2 for this one.
Yes.
So you can humiliate me again in front of the internet again.
Well, yeah. All right. Let me grab a stack here and see if there's anything. I feel that this is all too... I feel like you should be able to get at least 3, if not 4 of these. All right.
Thanks for the pressure.
Yep. Name 2 horror movies that take place in the snow or ice.
Alien versus Predator.
Oh, yeah.
And Ravenous.
Okay, cool. I was going with Hypothermia, Wrong Turn 4, or The Shining. I thought Shining was going to be the first thing.
I was like, the first thing that came into my head was, and I didn't remember if this was right or not, was Zombievers. So.
No, but Dead Snow.
Yeah, that was the picture I was thinking of, but.
Zombievers was fun. Weird. All right. A bucket of blood, a fire hose, and tampons, 1976.
All right, Carrie.
All right. This is the one I don't have any clue. What is the full title of the German expressionist horror film The Golem from 1920?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh my God, dude, we both forgot The Thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of them, dude. The Thing.
Yeah. Krampus was another
Dreamcatcher.
one.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
All the Christmas ones. Silent Night, Deadly Night. Yeah.
Black
Christmas. Yeah.
Okay. The Golem, How He Came into the World. I forgive you for not getting that because who the hell is getting that one? All right, back to something you can get. What actor played Dr. Sam Loomis in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2007?
Wasn't that Malcolm McDowell?
It was.
Okay.
All right. And see, this is the one, and you could get 3, but here's the one I'm not sure about. A young woman undergoes experimental plastic surgery to save her life after an accident, but the surgery causes her to crave human blood and sets off a city-wide epidemic in this 1977 film. It was also recently remade, probably about within the last 10 years.
Shit. I know. It was on a couple lists for one of the things that we did last year on the podcast.
That would make sense. I'm pretty sure I know who the director... Oh, wait. Does that say Marilyn Chambers is in it? It does, yeah. She was sexy in it. It's a Cronenberg movie, if that helps in any way.
I'm trying to remember. Was it The Craving?
Nope.
Okay. Well,
it is Rabid.
Okay, yep.
So, I really liked... I haven't seen the remake of it, but I thought the first one was really good. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I remember... That was one of the ones that's on my list of his movies to see. That and The Brood, those come up a lot, and I haven't seen them. I seem to be 3 for 5. That seems to be my go-to for Kent's fucking. What are those called?
They are called Slash Cards, the horror movie trivia game.
I seem to be a good 3 for 5 for the slash cards. So we'll see next month if my stuff continues. I guess next week when we discuss the finale for House of the Dragon. Did we figure out what we're doing next month for the horror version of our podcast?
No, No, do you have anything in mind?
No, you go ahead and pick. You let me pick the Mummy franchise.
All right, so next week we'll announce what the horror is for November.
All right, Internet, thank you for staying with us as long as you did. It is now no longer my birthday, so you have been treated to 2 days' worth of content. It was fun, and thank you again for letting me talk about this, stuff that wasn't necessarily scary and going to scar my brain. And I will talk to you later, Kent.
Oh, you know what? I wanted to tell you something.
Oh, okay, well, wait till after my whole...
I waited till your outro, yes. I know, I just screwed you over. Today was the very first day I had a shot glass full of honey. And I'll tell you, not bad.
I enjoy honey. I've never had it from a shot glass.
Well, I'm trying not to contaminate everything. Like, I'm going through, like, the disposable plastics spoons as much as possible. But, like, I was like, I got this shot glass. It's of Tyrion, actually. So it's a pint size, little guy. And, yeah, great. I did that. And one other thing I was going to throw out there was 2 days ago, because I couldn't breathe. This is what I was living off of. Vicks Vapor Rub and Frank's Red Hot.
That's an interesting combination, and I enjoy both of them separately.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, for anybody going through COVID that can't breathe through your nose, Vicks and Frank's Red Hot. That's all I wanted to leave people on, so.
Well, there you go, Vicks and Frank's. Sounds like it could be a restaurant or something. Anyways, yeah, again, thank you, and good night from me.
Yeah, good night from me, too.